When is enough enough? That's what I'm going to talk about today. And I can already give an answer. There's no such thing as enough is enough. What makes sense for us who might not be subject to abuse, it makes sense. We are not directly involved. We are at a distance. But for those who are in the middle of a situation of abuse, that's a totally different story. They're not, well, maybe they're asking themselves when is enough enough, but there's so much more which is at stake. So I want to give an example. One of my clients has been struggling with a relationship, and that relationship has been going on for years now. Every time he breaks it off, and then gets back on again. She abuses him mentally, and it has come to a point of severe addiction. And here's the thing: he says, I've had enough. He says, I'm done with the whole thing. I don't want to see her again, but he doesn't actually say the words. So he knows she's not good for her. He knows he needs to get away from her, but he doesn't have the guts because, like he says, who's there to catch me? Well, actually, he has someone who can catch him, but still, there's this little something that, because sometimes she gives him something, sometimes she's there when others are not, and that's how she keeps him in her trap. Normally, when we're not talking about domestic abuse, people are respectful. And when we are talking about domestic abuse, people are not respectful at all. And that's the whole problem. They don't recognize the boundaries. They don't care about your boundaries. They only care about themselves. And sometimes you would think that saying enough is enough is good enough. No, you have to be more clear. You have to be more specific. And sometimes more is needed than just words to be specific. And here's the thing: if people really want you, they find a way around all of this. They just ignore you. Okay, I've changed the alarm. You can't go in there anymore. Oh, but I still have the key to the door. Okay, you don't have the key to the door anymore. Yeah, but I can find the backyard. Okay, I can't, and it won't stop until that backyard is closed. Hey, Anna, so good to see you. So that's the whole thing. The thing is, you have to be specific, and if you're not, because there is a doubt for some reason how little it is, then it won't happen. So that's one story, and the other one is about, well, actually, they're all the other story is sort of similar because, and Joe will tell it to you. The whole thing is about safety. The whole thing is about safety. Do people feel safe enough to stand on their own? Do they think it will make a difference once they stand on their own? Or do they feel like things are going um, to get out of hand? So Anna and I have been going back and forth. Well, actually, she has been telling me a lot of stuff. And what she said to me was, a lot of people, women, they do not go back or they do not press charges because Oh, yes, you stayed for 5 years. Do you want to get in? I would like that, Michael, if you were to come in. I sent you the StreamYard link. So if you can come in, I would appreciate that. I'll put it here on the clipboard. Hang on. That makes it a little bit easier. And basically, what was said by Anna is it has no use to press charges. Oh, I'm sorry, you can't come in. Oh, you can't come in StreamYard at all. Hmm, that's weird. Well, just leave your comments and we'll get into it. It's so important to hear the story. Um, but if authorities don't take any action, then that's going to be a problem. And if they only get a slap on the wrist, then that's going to be a problem. And what's going to happen straight after? So I actually wrote down a number of things. Ah, okay, you can talk. I get it. Um, yeah. So I wrote down a number of causes why people would stay. But before I get into it, I think we need to talk about what kind of abuse there is. Um, Abuse isn't limited to women. Let's start with that one. And that's basically what Michael said. I stayed for 5 years. It's also for men. It's just a little bit different. So there's mental abuse, there's physical abuse. The question is, are men physically abused? I believe they are. It's just that people don't believe it because women, they're not as strong as men, so that doesn't make sense. But there is one thing: women can be very sharp when it comes with their tongue and what they say. They know their way around words. And then we get to mental abuse. And here, that's what Michael says. It was mentally, emotionally, and psychologically abused. And that's the thing. So words can be so damaging. Words can be so damaging. They can take away everything when it comes to self-esteem. And the thing is, at some point, you start to believe it. And that's something that Jo will tell us later on when she gets in. This is all about self-worth. So there are a couple of reasons why people wouldn't leave. And one very important element is self-worth. Do you believe that you can do it on your own? Do you believe you'll run into someone else? Because that one moment that someone says, I love you, that. Okay, so Anna told me there is mental, there's physical, but there's also patrimonial violence. And apparently that's taking things away from you. For me, that was a new one, but it does make sense. It's basically stripping you of everything that you've got until you have nothing left. And now correct me if that's wrong. But that's what I picked up from your explanation. But that's basically what happened. So there's this song, Mariela.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can see you. So thank you for being here. Michael is communicating in the comments. So is Anna. And Joe is going to get in a little bit later. This is such an important topic. Um, so Michael said he suffered mental abuse. As a guy, he said it wasn't about the physical, but was mentally, emotionally, and psychologically. And then, of course, there's the physical stuff. And the question is, how come we don't see it? How come we don't notice it? Even if you are experiencing it yourself, why don't we as outsiders see it? And that's basically what I wanted to talk about. And that probably has to do with the reasons why people don't um, stand up for themselves. Oh, Mariela is gone again. So, first, back to the causes. We see it often from generation to generation. So, just think about it. If you know people who were a victim of abuse, then big chances are they are raised by people who are either doing the same thing to one another, as in the parents, or and they saw it. So as a kid, they saw what normal relationships were like. Well, those of abuse, and of course, as kids, when you are abused, that already shapes your mindset how to survive. And that's why a lot of people who are experiencing abuse at some point already have experienced it growing up. And that's a very, very sad thing. And the abusers sniff it out. So, starting, passing on from generation to generation, that's why I want to talk about this, because it's so important that we stop the cycle. Trauma. Trauma. It could be trauma from, now, well, for instance, my parents experienced World War II, both of them. My mom was in Indonesia at that time. Fortunately for her, she didn't have to go to a Japanese prison camp, but a lot of stuff happened actually um, also in the streets. So there was a fear for what was going to happen. I have heard stories from clients who were in the Japanese prison camp, like little kids, and who saw things. Other clients who were a little bit older, whose dads were in the prison camp, they survived. But at that moment, when they came out, especially the parents, when they were in there and they came out, they didn't know what to do with the anger in their system. And they needed something to give it way. So trauma and desperation, those two things can lead to abuse. Desperation, and then I'm talking, for instance, say that you are let off of your job and you cannot provide for money anymore, or something physically is going on and you are in a lot of pain. Chances are that you are not responding the way you used to, and that you are very, well, you're not very communicative anymore. And because you can't smile, you're not happy anymore. You cannot put yourself in other people's positions anymore because you're all consumed is that one thing that's going on. I talked about narcissistic people, and basically Michael was sort of talking about it. Well, not sort of, I know he was talking about it. In the example I listed, I was also talking about the narcissistic personality. In this case, the girlfriend is the narcissistic person. Um, and the thing is, how can you recognize it? Because they say, because I can. They don't literally say it, but that's the way they act. So if someone has no respect for you and tells you to, well, you can actually see it because they take. So they don't offer to pay for drinks, they don't offer to pay for food. They take your drinks, they take your cigarettes if you're smoking. Um, if there's a weekend out, they're waiting till you start to pay. Those kind of things. And that's what it is about. This is about taking. That's how you recognize a narcissistic personality. And they don't have the ability to even consider that maybe something doesn't add up. It's all about them. And then it comes back to self worth, because if you are experiencing this, what is left of your self worth? because the narcissistic persons, those people are so good at telling you that you're not worth it, that you are doing everything wrong, and they are so amazing, and you should be lucky that they are staying with you. Last but not least, I was talking about trauma, and I was also talking about desperation. Well, when you are victim of abuse and you don't have the ability to talk about it, you can bet it is going to lead to addiction, because you try to numb yourself, you try to end it, like this is done, over and done with. But then, and if you are not capable of talking to others about it, whether it's because you're ashamed or because of other reasons, we'll get into that later, then you need to find a way out to not feel, because basically you don't want to be there. You don't want to exist in that position. So you try to drown your sorrows. Some start using substances, others start cutting themselves, again, others start drinking. Something is going to happen. And the thing is, when you start numbing yourself, chances are that you become the abuser in that case. So then we get, people going against one another, and especially the children are the ones who suffer from it most. Anna, if you have anything, and by the way, the same it applies to Michael too, just let me know. Um, I'm reading the comments as they go. Well, then is the question: why would someone be staying, and why would they be hiding that they that they're bruised, and saying, "Oh, I ran into the door, I fell from the stairs," all that stuff. Um, I think it comes down to self worth, and I believe you said the same thing too, that it has to do with self worth. So I was getting into this song, and the song was about, it's from Ramstein, and it's called Das Mauer. I'm building you a house, and the house is from cement, has a nice wall, it has a great garden. Um, the only thing is, there's no door. And oh yeah, by the way, you don't have any shoes on, you don't have any clothes on. Your feet are actually there in cement, and you can't enjoy anything. And I'm taking away everyone who has access to it. And that's also something, how you can recognize as an outsider that someone is victim of abuse or from a narcissist. People don't contact you anymore. Your friends, they suddenly, you don't hear from them anymore. You hear that their boyfriend or the girlfriend or whoever it is, their partner, says, no, 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 I want you to stay with me. Let's see. What does Anna say? In my country, law is not so hard, and aggressors feel free to practice violence. Yeah, that's the whole thing. So, and then we get back to the because I can. So, in the example of people just stripping others away because they are so charming and they are so fun, that's how they lure you in their trap. And by the time that you notice it, it's too late. And well, this is what Anna already said to me. She said, aggressors feel free to practice violence. Because what is the law going to do about it? And that, by the way, that's in several countries. That's the case. I mean, first something has to happen, and then they're going to believe you. So by the time that you're nearly dead, that's maybe when something starts to happen. And then even we talk about a slap on the wrist. And here's the thing: what if you were to leave? What then? What can you do? Can you take care of your own? What if you have children? You want to keep your children safe. You want to make sure that they can go to school, that they have clothes, all that stuff. That's a big problem. So why would they be staying and hide the abuse? Well, shame, shame, absolutely. And then we get back to the self-worth. They are ashamed. They are letting this happen. They are ashamed. Someone is doing this to them. It's not probably not even that they let it happen. It's like I'm ashamed of my partner that he's doing this to me. And then we get back to the first part. They still love the other one because at some point they fell in love. And chances are that at one moment or another, that the abuser will say, I love you. And, you get smacked around. And the next, the person says, oh, I'm sorry. We'll never have again. I love you. And they may shower you with gifts. And then the next moment, maybe when they're drunk, whoop, same thing happens again. They only need this much to get so enraged to start smacking you around. And that's the whole thing. And again, it could be because something is bothering them, whether it's at work or in their personal life. And they basically they turn their rage on you, even though you don't deserve it. And that's the whole thing. You cannot believe that someone would do it for no reasons, especially when they still tell you, I love you. So then you have your feelings and your emotions and your ratio, and it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. The person told you, I love you, they make it up to you, and because sometimes you actually see that other person where you fell in love with, the other person is still there until the person isn't. But it's that hope, and we hope, we have this need to believe in the good, in the best of people. So love, very important one. Shame, we talked about that too. um, Believing this is normal, and I'm saying that too. She says I'll change, and that's the whole thing. So I'm going to get back to, if you've seen it before and you haven't been in another relationship, and next something happens, you get smacked around, people tell you, I love you, I won't do it anymore, I will change, then you might think that this is a normal cycle. It's totally normal that people are doing this to you. We know it isn't. And there is Joe. Hello,
Hi.
Joe.
Hiya.
Yeah, I'm in the midst of talking about why victims of domestic abuse are staying and hiding their bruises. And maybe in a little bit you can share a little bit of your story, or maybe you don't want to, but I do know that you can actually give some facts about how certain things are. So, and I was telling hi, Joe, too. Um, so just to do a little bit of to get back at things so you're up to speed again. I've been talking about why is saying enough is enough is not working. And because normally when you're an outsider and you look at it, you're like, hey, you're being smacked around, of course you're going to go away. But that's not how it works. There's so much more involved. And one of the things I believe is because you've been exposed to it some point or another when growing up, because maybe it's passed on from generation to generation. Something traumatic has happened. The person before was really lovely, and then at some point the person wasn't so lovely anymore because of traumatic experiences, desperation. And then, of course, there's the total opposite, and those are the ones who say, well, because I can, the narcissist out there. So that's the very quick version of what I just said. And then, of course, there's the thing from why would someone be staying and hiding her bruises? Because what I started out with is sometimes no, scratch that. A lot of times, if not always, we don't recognize it as outsiders, and that's because of the hiding, and we don't know. So, do you want me to share a little bit about your story or not at all? I don't know what you're up to.
Yeah, yeah, go on.
Okay, so first of all, Jo has lost her sister due to domestic violence. And the hurtful thing is she didn't see it. And Jo herself has been a victim of domestic violence too. Fortunately for her, there were some men in her family who stood up for her. Fortunately for her, there was someone, an outsider, in this case, a police officer, who warned her, if this is going to continue on, then one day you won't be here anymore. And this is the hard thing. You can experience it yourself and still not recognize it when it happens to another. And that was one of the reasons that we are actually talking about this today. It's not the only reason. There are several reasons, but I believe that this is a very important reason to do it today because you are mourning the loss of your sister. Because what Anna basically said here, the abusers, they get a slap on the wrist. After a few years they get back out of jail again and they can continue on whatever it is. You told me the same thing. The one who did it, he's already he's on parole, right? But he can
He's
live
out of
his
prison
life.
now, yeah.
It was a short sentence. So that's what brings me to why would the victim of a domestic abuse stay and hide it? So the first thing was love. You might have seen that person was once good for you, was good to you. And you might think, oh, see, that person is still there, so you want to hold on. Children, safety. You want to make sure that there's enough money for them to go to school, that there's food, that there's clothes. And of course, being smacked around is not good for your self esteem. So your self esteem will go downhill too. And you might start believing that you are not worth it. Um, the lack of support, that's one thing I just mentioned just now. Um, what if no one knows? There's no one to talk it to because you are ashamed. Because, oh my God, my partner can't do that to me. I'm ashamed for what my partner is doing. Or I'm ashamed because I let it happen to me. Um, and that's at that moment, since no one knows because you're not sharing, there is the lack of support. And even when people know, what can they do? And then we get back to the threats. What if they threaten to kill your family? What if they are in the position to do it, to make your life hell? And then I get back to what Anna was saying, the patrimonial violence. So I was talking about mental and physical abuse, but what if they take everything away from you, everything surrounding you? So Anna is saying the law in Brazil changed recently, and now police has to support victims after violence. That's a good one. I'm happy to read that. So, anything I've said up till now, does it resonate with you? Are there things that you recognize?
Oh yeah,
What?
many do.
Okay.
Like the line for them and line for you, because you don't want your family to know what's happening. and hiding bruises. That's one of the most common things. The makeup you can buy now, it's so like, obviously back then it wasn't as, but I mainly stayed away from my family. I used to make excuses up that I couldn't come because I was working, or, you know, I was late, I was tired, and, you know, I was using excuse after excuse after excuse, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's taking away the support. So that's
yeah,
how your world gets really small, because
yeah.
not only does your partner make sure that you don't go there, you don't go there yourself either because you're ashamed. So, what was the reason you didn't want your family to know? I think this is maybe the most important question of the whole conversation. Why didn't you want them to know?
One, because I thought I loved him and they would
Hmm.
pull me away from him.
Hmm.
Two, I was embarrassed and ashamed. I didn't want people to think that I was weak
Hmm.
and I couldn't stand up for myself.
Hmm.
Three, I knew if my dad had found out at the time, then I'd hate to think what would have happened to him at the
Hmm.
time, because, you know, um, and it's many a things, you know, and because they threaten you as well. So you're sort of put in that position where in your head you're thinking, oh my God, well, he said he's going to do this. I can't risk that. I can't risk it. I can't do that. They're my family, you know. I can't risk them getting hurt. I'd rather get hurt myself than all my family getting hurt, you know. And it just, they brainwash you. They literally brainwash you, you know.
Yeah.
Because mental, even though I had both, I had mental and physical abuse, but mental abuse is worse than physical. Bruises can disappear, mental issues can't. They're
Yeah.
with you for life.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I also said when you're experiencing mental abuse. First of all, it makes you small. Your self esteem goes
Yep.
haywire.
No
And
confidence,
then,
no.
yeah, and then there's the risk of addiction and trying to numb yourself, making yourself so little as possible, focusing on all the other stuff except for feeling things. And of course, that can also result in when your children are growing up and they see what's happening, that they actually think it's normal. Fortunately, you broke the cycle. So,
Yeah.
um, before we talk about the breaking the cycle, do you think I left something else besides the love, the shame, believing it's normal, lack of support, threats?
Um, it's, I think you've really got most of it. Yeah, I think you really, fear, obviously fear. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think as well, like, they put you in a position where you're afraid to see the outside world again. You think that you're never gonna be able to rest. Your mind will never set. You're living in fear constantly. Every time you hear like a door shut or a cupboard, you're like, you think, oh my God. And then he says something, and then you got that fear thinking, oh my God, is it going to kick off again? Is it going to kick off again? Like, things like that, any noises and flinches and things like that, I was a nervous wreck because I had a fear thinking, oh my God, if I spilt something or if I dropped something, I was like, oh my God, he's going to go mad. He's going to go mad. He's going to start on me now. So I need to be good. I just need to do whatever he says. Yes, 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 yes. You know, and it puts you in that position where you're just frightened to say anything because you're frightened that you're going to say the wrong word.
Yeah.
And
It's a
things
vicious
like that.
circle, basically.
Yeah.
You hear the things, you are on edge, adrenaline is high, you can't sleep because of the adrenaline, but also because you always have to be in survival mode.
Yeah.
So you're always sleeping with one eye open, one
Mhm.
ear open. What's going to
Yeah.
happen? Because you can't sleep, you can't function properly anymore.
No.
So the world just gets smaller and smaller and smaller.
Mhm.
So before we go on, at some point there was this police officer, and she told you,
Yeah.
make sure you're going to get away. So I actually listed a number of results. And the first one, that's what she told you, death.
Yeah.
And that's what she told you. You
Yeah.
are not going to get out of it. And I actually hear people say, when I'm dead, it's good too. Because then it's over and done with.
But it's not for the families.
No, and that's the thing. It's not true for the families, but that's how brainwashed someone can be. And
Mhm.
there's no outcome. There's no.
Yeah.
They actually think, oh, that might be a good thing. The second thing I listed was unrepairable bodily damage, and I wonder if people even consider that something might happen, which is so well, like a brain injury. A
Mhm.
brain injury isn't that uncommon when you are smacked around enough, and when you land with your brain, with your head at the wrong thing, it can not just cause concussions, but it can cause permanent damage. But
Yeah.
maybe also other things which can happen. Um,
And that can
then
cause severe depression even more as well because it's the brain.
exactly.
Mhm.
That's very good one. Yeah. And then we get back to lowering self-esteem even more and not believing in good things. The next one, premature birth and deaths.
Mm.
And that's something, and people don't see it. People don't see that's happening, but you're at your most vulnerable when you're pregnant.
Yeah.
And that's something that never goes away, that loss.
Never. And being in the hospital on my own as well and watching my little boy die in my arms, that was just beyond. I can't even describe it, to be fair, because a lot of it I've seemed to have blocked. Um, it's I felt guilty of losing. I blamed myself, and obviously it wasn't me because he had kicked me and everything. So obviously, but in my head, it was my fault because I'd said something or done something wrong for him to click. And when I had to give birth, and I remember laying there after when I said to you before, like the nurse said to me, she said to me, she said, "You're in an abusive relationship, aren't you?" And I was denying it. No, 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 no. But she knew. But back then, because I was only 20 back then we never had the support that we can have now. This is the thing. Nowadays there's more support. They notice more things and they can help now, whereas back then they didn't give a damn. They wasn't interested. They really
Yeah.
wasn't, And the worst mistake I ever did, and I still regret to this day now, that I never got him done for killing my baby, you know.
Yeah.
And
So how's that
that,
the worst mistake?
because at the time, as I said, I felt guilty, and as I've got on in life, I'm like, why did I just walk away? Why didn't I go? Why didn't I say, like, you know, reach out to my family, reach out to my friends? You know, that shows you how long I hadn't seen my parents, like my dad and my stepmom and that, because they didn't even know I was pregnant.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the whole thing, and that's why I also listed that number from Rammstein, Das Mauer, the wall. You know, he builds his partner a nice house, cement house, brick house, looks awesome with windows, but there's no door, and actually she's not wearing any clothes. There's a nice garden, but she is stuck in the
Mm.
floor. He has cemented her in the floor. So no breathing room, no nothing. No one can get in. But that's the way it works. And it's from talking to you, I also understand that it's a combination of them keeping you away from your support system, your friends and your family, but also you doing it yourself because of shame.
Yeah,
And that's a hard one. That's a hard one. And and that does may take me slightly for a second to the end, and then I'll get back to what I wanted to say,
yeah.
because I do believe that one of the reasons that people stop it is because of their children. So the reason they might stay is the children, because they want them to have good education, to have clothes. But also that very same reason is why people muster up the courage, not for themselves, but for their children.
For their kids, yeah, because a lot of when you with somebody like's got narcissism or somebody that beats on women and that, you generally find a lot of them went through it with their own parents, like their fathers. And if they're brought up in that environment and not pulled away, you can guarantee I'd say about 50 to 60% women as well, because women can be violent to men,
Hmm.
they will grow up doing exactly the same. It's like
Yeah,
when a child sees a parent smoking, they think, right, when they're a teenager, oh, it's okay to smoke. Drugs, it's all of it. If they're
yeah,
brought up in that environment, God bid for me, my other children never got to witness anything like that. Only when my sister's death occurred. But they didn't see me go through that.
yeah, and that's a
Like,
good thing.
yeah, like I sometimes sit there and I think, what if my son had survived? What would his life have been like if I'd stayed with him
Yeah,
and he lived through that? Or I might not even be here. As I said, I probably wouldn't, as a policewoman said, I probably wouldn't be here anyway.
yeah,
And
exactly.
what would have happened to that boy of mine?
Hmm.
What life would he have had, you know?
Yeah.
I
What
sort of
if,
think of things like that, and, you know,
yeah, what if he would have ended up in the foster system? And
exactly.
that's, you go from one wrong into the other wrong, and that's what makes it so hard.
Hmm.
So, results: uh, death, unrepairable bodily damage, premature birth and death, addiction. I think that's something that men, when it comes to men, a lot of them get addicted. And
Mm,
they're also good at hiding it until they can't anymore.
yeah,
And addiction, of course, leads to violence at some point because you still need to vent it.
yeah, yeah. And the aggression, and if you've got that one person near you, that's who you're going to take it out on,
Yeah,
because they're the closest thing to you.
yeah,
It's like when women abuse children or men, because that's the closest thing to them at that time. So that's why they do it,
yeah.
because, you know, it's just weird.
Yeah, and the thing, of course, is that um, if you are traumatized and you don't know how to deal with certain things because you are a victim, because you've experienced it, then how are you going to deal with it if you don't talk about it?
Mm.
And that's how the cycle actually starts to continue. So Anna says, I think that some things are negative is the increase in crime due to impunity. At least in Brazil, the impunity is big. Um, impunity as in lack of punishment.
Yeah. Uh, don't know.
Yeah,
Life should be life. Life should be for life. Nowadays, no.
yeah. So addiction, that's something that can happen. A lot of people just don't want to think. They don't want to know. Um, and like I said, that could have its effects when you have children. So it passes on to the next generation. Self harm, anything to not feel anymore.
Yeah.
Um, Violence as a reaction to the abuse and passing it on to the next generation. So now we get to a little bit to the good part of all the things, because what I wanted to discuss is what can stop this. Oh, she says when the law doesn't bring results, there's impunity. Okay,
Mm,
yeah. So the law basically isn't sufficient enough to put a stop to this.
mm,
And of course, then we also get back to um, not seeing it, there not being enough evidence, hiding it, um, and if you as a victim, you in general try to hide it, and if they are smart as perpetrators to make sure that it's like punching you in certain places where it doesn't show. Those are those little tricks that they can apply. And of course, when they threaten you, so you won't say anything, there are a number of reasons why where they cannot do enough because the evidence is not enough, or
mm.
you first have to be almost dead. Um, doesn't sound good, but yeah. So let's start with, if you now look back on what happened. So let's first of all start with what stopped you. So you ended up in the hospital. You lost your little boy. There was
Mm.
this police officer who
Yeah.
talked to you, and then what?
And then when I got home, I had a friend who came to stay, and she was the one that got me away from the place. She said, I don't care what you think you're going to do. She said, but you're going. He went to work. Her dad came with his van, and we just literally just grabbed everything that was mine and just went, just disappeared
Hmm.
and left. Yeah, she literally got me because it was getting to a point where when she was staying with me, I was having panic attacks. There was some couple of nights where I just wanted to go up on the building and jump off because that's what I was
Yeah,
getting through my head. It
yeah,
was just so much pressure, and I thought I'd be better off dead at the time. And I missed my boy. I wanted to be with him. And, it's just all stress and thoughts that run through your head at the time that you don't think about. You can't think about your other family. You can't think about anything else. I just thought I'd be better off dead. I'm with my boy. He can't touch me no more. And that's when she said, no, enough's enough. She said,
hmm
if you don't go, she said, I swear, she said, I will drag you out. She said, my dad. And she said to me, she said, I will ring your dad up now.
Yeah.
if you don't get out of this place. And I did. And I plucked up the courage. And I got away with it.
Yeah.
And I got out of it.
So that's the support that you need. And when I
Yeah,
said at the beginning, when is enough, that
yeah.
makes sense for us as outsiders, but it doesn't make sense to you. So I do understand that your ex also got some sort of warning, just to put it mildly.
Yeah, by my dad and brother. Yeah.
You don't
Because
have to
my,
get too much into it.
yeah, just put it that way, that he would never have come near me no more.
Yeah, and that's
He had
basically
a good
what you need to know.
beating. Yes, a good beating, which he
Yeah.
deserved. So, yeah.
Yeah. By the way, Anna sent a not so smiley with a teardrop on it. So now, when you look back, I mean, you are 30 years down the line.
Mm.
What has changed in your mind when it comes to the person who wanted to die, who didn't think he was worth enough, who felt ashamed? What would you say to her nowadays, or how do you feel nowadays? So, what would you say to potential victim of to victims who don't dare to go and are about to, like you said, jump off a building?
Mm. I'd say, one, try to get your mental state to a point where you calm down, sit down and think, right, I need to take one step at a time. First, I need to get the strength and courage to be able to talk to somebody, contact somebody. Especially nowadays, there is people you can reach out. I mean, I did that post today, didn't I? Which I've never told any, that nobody knew. I've already had a person inboxing me today who's going through hell and asking me how I got the courage and everything. And I told her exactly all my story. Um, speak to somebody. Nowadays, you can reach out to anybody. There's the internet now. There's so many different ways now than there was like when I was 20. Just talk to somebody, even if it's a stranger, someone you don't know, who's been in that position. Talk to them, listen to their stories, listen to them, what they went through and how they got out. And there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. You can get away from it. You can. Even if they threaten you, it's just words. The threat is to
Yes.
make you feel like you're not worth anything. They put the fear in you to believe that you can't get away, but you can. Just listen to people. When someone said, listen, take their advice and please get away. There's safe houses now. There's loads of safe places now where you can go if you're in need to get out of an abusive relationship. There's places to contact. Go online. There's loads
Yeah.
of places.
There are
People can help you.
hotlines.
There is so
Self.
much help now than what there was. I know it's hard because obviously when you're in that situation, you think, oh my God, I can't walk away. I can't, they're going to find me. They're going to probably kill me. No, it's very rare. Yes, you do get the odd cases that does happen, but it's very, very rare for that to happen. Majority people get away and they rebuild their lives and start a new life. Even if you have to travel to the other side of the country, get away. Your life is more important than having to put up with that abuse, especially if you've got children. Please protect the kids because their future is ahead of them. And the worst thing you want is for your children to see that and then do exactly the same when they're older. You wouldn't want that on your kids. You want your kids to feel safe and happy.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I
bad
totally
enough
agree.
with children when children are being abused and beaten and and they've got nobody to turn to. it's harder for them to find someone than it is an adult. An adult's got more advanced to do that than a child. It's harder for a child because many people don't believe them, you know, and things like that. But when you're an adult, you can get away and get your
Well,
children away.
I did notice, and I don't know if it's the same in other countries, but especially in the Netherlands, if they suspect that there's child abuse, then they need to take action also in the school system. But there's
Yeah, but they
always,
do
of
here.
course, the thing like, okay, what if I accuse someone wrongly? And that's the whole thing. And even the follow-ups, they're not that good. And
Mm,
I have some clients who are now dealing with the aftermath of people not following up from the system. And I'm saying one step at a time is important.
yeah, you
Um,
have to do it step by step. You need to build up your confidence step by step, and then eventually you will be able to walk away. It takes time. Don't expect to just get up and just think, "Oh my God, I can." It's not that easy. It's not that easy,
yeah,
and I know it's not that easy. But
yeah.
you can do it. You can do it.
Yeah, so I wrote down awareness on several accounts, as in what can stop this. Awareness for the abused, awareness for the abuser, awareness for the spectators. Because the abuser doesn't necessarily want to mean harm.
Mm.
I mean, you told about your ex, you probably believe that at some point he must have been a good guy.
He was when I first met him. Fine.
Yeah,
He was like everyone used to say, "Oh my God, he's wonderful." We used to go out with friends. He was lovely. And then as soon as I got pregnant, just
yeah.
bang,
And
changed.
often that's the result of jealousy. And
Mm.
they know they can know they have to share you with someone and they don't want that. So that's fear and jealousy.
He was
Uh,
before, he was quite verbally abusive before, and he hit me a couple of times before I was pregnant. But when I got pregnant, that's when it got worse.
yeah,
Then obviously it got to the point where I was hospitalised a couple of times, and the last time was not long after I gave birth,
yeah,
and 3 days after, and that
yeah,
was horrific.
yeah. Good news is it was a turning point.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah,
the good thing. So awareness, um, both for the person who's the victim, also for the one who's doing it, because there might be reasons why they're doing it and they are not aware of what they're doing. They might just come up with with the excuse, ah, it's not that bad. Because like you are hiding it, they
yeah.
can pretend it isn't there because
That is the thing. It was like the first little sat. What am I worried? It's all right. No, one out, gone, go. I would never, ever let another man lay a hand on me ever. And
yeah,
I was lucky to have the husband that I did because he wouldn't. He was never like that. But no way would I ever, and would I ever let my girls go through that or my son?
yeah.
Because no,
And that's the strength from children. You want to protect your children as a
yeah,
mother. So and that's probably what changed it all.
yeah,
So also spectators need to be more aware. So in general, we all need to be educated to recognize the signs. And in addition, I said, and even then, it's nearly impossible to talk someone into leaving, especially when it's going on longer, and or
yeah.
the person has a low self-worth because lack of love, and of course the constant beating.
Mm. I mean, some people I've known that have put up with it like 5, 10 years. I had 3 years of it. That was bad enough. But when you've got these people that are in them for like 20, 25, 30 years of
Yeah.
beating, and it's like, oh my God, how you still standing, you know?
Yeah, they don't know any better.
No,
And he's
it's
taking care of me. He's putting food on the
yeah,
table.
Yeah.
all
Oh,
that
there's a couple
stuff.
of bob. Go and treat yourself. Oh, next minute. Where have you been? Where have you been? Why have you been here? You know, and then that's how it all starts. Soon as you're in a relationship and a man's like, well, where have you been? What time did you come? Why was you here? What? Just walk away. They're not
Yeah,
worth it.
yeah, that's probably the best advice. We are going to end later on with that again when they start to check up and show signs of jealousy. Support was number two. You already said it. It's the friend who helped you. It was the police officer who said, "Hey, what's going on? You won't survive this." The nurse asked you, but that was not what helped you. But
Yeah.
nowadays, of course, when it comes to nurses and teenagers who get
They're
pregnant, all
more,
that
yeah,
stuff,
that they
there's
actually contact, yeah, which is
yeah,
good thing in a way because they're more protective with it now. And schools with kids turning up with a bruise. Sorry. Um, like any bruises they see on a child or anything like that, they get social services in, which, you know, it's more protection. You can get more help,
yeah,
definitely.
support lines, all that stuff. Um, a safe place to go to, safe
Yeah,
houses, for instance. You went to a friend, maybe like you said, on the other side of the country, anywhere but away from the one who's
exactly.
able to do it to you.
Yeah.
Of course, it's always a bit tricky when children are involved,
That
because do
that's
they still
that's
have
the worst thing,
custodies?
yeah. When there's kids and obviously you're trying to get away from someone, it isn't that easy because you have children and trying to prove that he was or is abusive to you, and you can't just get away. But obviously, if it comes to the point where you are hospitalised and you have children, then they will put you away in a safe house because they
Yeah,
will protect you and your children. So, you know, if it gets that point, just go to the hospital, ask for help that you need to get away, you know? Sorry.
yeah, we are going to wrap it up in a few
Yeah,
minutes.
got
I understand that you're very
been a
tired.
rough day.
Um, at number four, I wrote down independence. So being able to take care of yourself and your children. So hopefully there's something like social services which provide you with money, but if that's not there, it's so important that you know that, especially when you have children, that you can support your children and yourself, that there's enough food on the table, that there's clothing, that there's a house, all the
Mm,
basic stuff. Um, it doesn't have to be much, but being independent or becoming independent, that's probably one of the biggest things that can make a difference. And of course, when you are independent or you're working towards it, your self-worth will increase too. And you probably will be in touch with other people because you might be going to school or you start having a job, and you get in contact with the outside world again. So your world will get a little bit bigger. Um, but that independence, that's key. That's key. It's not the easiest thing maybe to go there, but it's what can make all the difference. Increase of self-esteem. Um, that can help you. So yes, as a result, your self-esteem may go downhill. But
yeah,
if you start watching YouTube, Google, all that stuff, seeing what's going on, shows on television, like you said, someone saw your post, um, then people might start to think about, hey, maybe
yeah,
I'm worth more than I think I am.
exactly. Even
Is
if
that
I
what
could just
happened to you
help
too?
one person, you know, you know you're helping someone,
Hmm.
and that's a good thing.
Yes. Yeah, and I applaud it. Increase your self-esteem.
Yeah.
And again, I realize it's one of the hardest things, and it sounds like a contradiction, uh, just like the whole independence thing, but it
Mm.
can be done. And I
Yeah.
do believe that, especially the surrounding, the people around you, they are a very important factor
Yeah.
when we're talking about
Definitely.
this. Education, same story basically. It's all in the same line. Education lets you know that you are worth more. It teaches you stuff. It will increase your self worth. It will make you more independent. And last but not least, sharing. And that's maybe one of the most important things. Share your story with other people, whether it's strangers, whether it's the police, whether it's a self support line, what you actually did. Um, of course, you're already out of that situation, but sharing is the first step. And of course, the question is, do people believe you? And that's one of the reasons why I am doing this live. And I also
Yeah.
ask you, please be here. And I asked Anna to join, Mariela too, but for some reason she disappeared again. Michael was on here too for a short while, because people need to know that this exists, not
Because
only for women
that's the
but
thing.
also for men.
Yeah, and that's the thing as well. Sometimes you think, oh, but if I share it, they're probably gonna think, oh God, like sharing that today. I was like, oh my God, they're probably thinking, oh my God, she's lost her husband, she lost her sister. Is this really happening? Do you know what I mean? But obviously, I did a video with my sister on it so they could see. But you do sit there and think, oh my God, people are going to think, oh my God, she's dramatising it. Oh, why is she telling everything? Why is she letting everyone know about her? But I didn't put that down purely because of me. I felt the program helped me, you know? So I just wanted to make sure that if there's anyone out there that's suffering, inbox me, message me. There's always help, you know? And I
Yeah,
just thought it was nice to share a post and just, you know,
it's good. It's good. We need
and
to
if,
make people
yeah,
aware of this,
mm,
and that's why I also try to explain to people, like, okay, this is what you can do about it. These are the signs. This is how you can recognize it, because that's the only way. And then we get back to the education, like how people can actually recognize it and realize, hey, something more is going on, and not just brush it off.
mm,
Um, I what I wrote down at the last thing was the best chance to stop this is actually the first time around, because then you're flabbergasted. You are like, you still know what your values are, unless, of course, you were raised in a situation where you were considering it as normal. But if it's a first time thing, you are still capable of saying, hey, you have crossed a line.
yeah,
And either you go away straight away, or you're saying, if this happens one more time, I'm gone.
yeah.
So it's about deciding right there and then, this can never happen again,
That's right. And
no
you've
matter
got to
what.
keep that in your head. If it happens again, I'm walking. I must walk. Don't, oh, but maybe, no, walk, go, get away from it as soon as possible. It's
Yeah.
really not worth it.
So maybe that's the one thing to end with. If it happens, make sure you program in your mind, this is never going to happen again. And if it does, I'm going to walk. So we
Yeah.
know you are very tired. So normally you are more radiant than this. So don't think
Yeah,
this
it's
is
just,
a
no,
lasting thing.
it's just a hard day because obviously trying to struggle and not having my mum where I always spoke to her every year. We would talk and I didn't have her to ring me today because she's not here. And that was
Yeah.
hard to deal with as well. So it's like extra pressure today. So I've had a
Hmm.
real hard emotional day.
Yeah. So for the
Exhausting.
people You actually think death is merciful. Well, it's for you maybe, but not for your surroundings, and that's something
Mm.
that's basically what we're seeing. But as for you, you came out of it,
Yep,
and
I'm
I
still
do
here.
want to celebrate you for it.
Thank you. And I have 3 beautiful children and a beautiful granddaughter. That's my
Hmm.
life, the
Yeah,
most precious thing.
and they are not scared,
No, no,
and that's
no.
probably the most wonderful thing. They haven't seen it, and they're not scared. They're still like, okay, life can be good.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
and and that's what I want people to see, that there can be a happy ending to this
A happy
story.
ending. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
and and that's what people need to see too. The moment that you start being yourself again, that, and maybe it's not on with the same luxurious circumstances you had before, but you're doing it yourself, and you can give the love freely without having to look over your shoulder nonstop.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
okay, I want to thank you for being here, for sharing your story, for thinking along. Also for those like Anna, Michael, and Mariela. Same story. Thank you for pitching in. If you know people or you suspect that they are experiencing these things, share this, and especially share that last advice. If this is going to happen to me one more time, I'm not going to put up with this. And it's not even woke, it's run. If people actually need something, talk to strangers.
Internet support lines,
Yeah, and people can
text.
always send me
Yeah,
a message. That's one of the reasons why I also have this pre-course Start to Speak Out Now, because this is all about speaking up, speaking out,
yeah,
and sharing your voice.